happy to be here because I have been only to Dublin once, in 2003, with Jill, organizing a conference in 2003 together with the German Marshall Fund. And we already, you remember, we tried to explain to the Americans the project of the European Constitution. Tells you something? Okay. So 7 years later, what project do we explain? To whom? And I think I should also say I have no speech for you. Not a speech in the usual sense that I'm here to sort of present, because I'm more here to capture your feelings about what might be your opinion on Germany or your opinions on the European discussion at large. I can try to give you a sense of what I think my country is heading for, but only a feeling. Because despite what every introduction says, but you know, I have no mandate, I am not elected, I have no power, right? So I'm just trying to feed a little bit a public discussion with some papers. I think with the last one, in a way, I hit a nerve. I'm not the only one saying what I say. It's probably just a nice summary of what many people say and think, but I wrote it down and this is it, not more. And I think this is also important to understand. And what you also should know is that Derek Skelly is my best friend. So he briefed me. The real question is really, when I was taking my plane this morning, trying to say, okay, the paper you can read, but what I'm going to use my 20 minutes for to really speak about. And then there is always this question sort of, on which note do I leave you, right? Half full or half empty? And to be very honest, this morning I wouldn't know any longer. I just wouldn't. And there are some which feed into the half full, right? The Greek voted yes yesterday, and that is at least sort of something that will probably bring us over the summer. Because the Greek voted yes yesterday, the EU Council will probably just do a sort of rollover in the way we are expecting it. German and French industrials, you probably have seen it, signed a big sort of advertising thing in major newspapers, which is finally that German industries is waking up to the sort of there's something happening, it may affect me thing. So all this is rather good. And I felt like, yeah, okay, this will bring us over the summer. We can all take a breath. We can all go at the beach and then think about what we do when, you know, we will back to the movie in September. Because I do actually think we will back to the movie in September, because there will be a next tranche to be given to Greece. We will also have a very difficult discussion in Germany with the Parlamentsvorbehalt, this sort of parliamentary voting thing, which needs to be, in a legal sense, to be fine-tuned and to be walked through a legal process. And I'm told by colleagues in the Bundestag that this is really tricky, the way you fix it in a legal sense, right? And also the ESM is not ratified. We expect Karlsruhe to vote over all the planes from last year. So I wouldn't stand here and say there aren't any hurdles to expect. And if now this tranche to Greece is there and Greece has voted about this program, then it's sort of fine. You know, that's not what I'm saying, but I tried to give you some drops to make this glass half full, or to at least say, yeah, well, we can take a breeze and start thinking about more creatively how we fix it then. But then you lean back and what's my story? I think my story is more an emotional story about where a country stands and what you try to detect from newspapers reading, and if you screen who writes what in which newspaper and who has a majority in, you know, which argument buys and which argument doesn't sell. And I'm a true believer in tipping points, right? And I feel honestly that sometimes you can miss a window of opportunity and debates can turn sour, and it's not so easy to bring them back to where they should be. So I guess my talk here is much about a total amalgam about many discussions that we haven't all been able to disentangle, and that goes from lazy Greeks to cheating Greece to a much more profound problem of primacy of politics over financial markets. That goes from how we organize our democracy in Europe to legitimacy question, like Jürgen Habermas raises them in our book. So what I'm saying is that when discussions get complex, the easy arguments sell better, right? And this happened in Germany, of course. And the easy argument was, we did the job, we restructured our economy. Yes, we did, right? We did. And the others did not, so we are the best, and the others should do what we did, and that was the easy part of it. And the Greeks are lazy in the first place. By the way, because I'm talking to an Irish audience, but everybody in Germany can make a difference between Greece and Ireland, right? I'm talking more about Greece because it's more what the German... that's perhaps interesting to know for an Irish audience. We are not going to sleep with concerns about Ireland, right? We know that this country is profoundly sane, healthy, has a young dynamic growth, can, you know, that
very reassuring.
That there is that there's a
sometimes we worry
that there's a debt problem, that we will need to fix it, that we will need to talk about interest rates 5% less or higher, that there's a corporate tax issue which can be solved because you are reasonable, the Germans are reasonable, yeah. But the irrationality, the newspaper irrationality, or the so-called published opinion about Greece, Ireland, Portugal is pretty different from Ireland to Greece to Portugal, right? And I want you to know this. I think nobody in Germany goes to bed sort of, we have a real problem with the Irish. We have many technical problems with the Irish, and we all know in a way they can be solved if collective wisdom is there and if collective wisdom is put into place. The real question is, will there be ultimately enough political energy to put that into place if other debates are so irrational and drive us all nuts before we can come to solving the little Irish question, right? And that is why I allow, under the auspices of the German Foreign Service, to speak much more about emotions than about figures, right? I checked up a little of your figures and about what you need to have a surplus, and yeah, but you all know this, so I don't need to talk with you about this. Going back to Germany, and I was talking about tipping points, right? If my thesis, my feeling is right, that since a year, what I would call wrong arguments have been puring the German debate. And the wrong arguments, it's all about, we are the victims of the whole thing, we are paying for everybody, we are backing everybody, you know, everybody's cheating us, and there's something like a trust relationship broken between the Germans and Europe, because the European Union is no longer what they think they shaped in the first place. Bailout, 125, sort of, you know, law and order, German rule, principles. And this breakdown of trust, I think, is very important for public mindset. Because trust is what makes a relationship happening. By the way, private like collective relationships. If you can't trust, then you can't trust. And if you can't trust, you need to control, right? And I think this is happening. And this has been happening in large extents. So, then, and that was the beginning. You all know that Bild Zeitung carried this out and ruled this out. First the Greeks, then the Irish. And why did it happen? And what is of concern for me is, why did German elites not go against? You know, that was the appell of Jürgen Habermas a year ago. Deutsche Eliten rettet Europa. German elites, please save Europe, right? And that is the interesting point when I talk about tipping points. Who is writing the pro-argument? We should take this as a collective problem and solve it. It's basically Helmut Schmidt, 82 years old, Jürgen Habermas, 82 years old, Joschka Fischer, 60-something years old, and sometimes little Guerot, 46, right? There are another handful of people, but there are not many, right? And there's something like an obsession of a mainstream economic discourse, which clearly stands beyond the international economic discourse. It's sort of as if Germany has to a large extent an autistic debate, not that arguments from the outside do not pour into the German media system, and arguments from the German media system don't pour outside or don't drop outside. What I see here, I mean, for instance, I guess you read the Financial Times and then you read Martin Wolf or you read Wolfgang Münchau, right? Wolfgang Münchau is perceived as being more or less anti-German. Basta, right? So the Münchau argument, that is the argument about trade imbalances and Germany is perhaps part of the problem, not only the solution sort of argument, yeah, is just not perceived in mainstream media, yes, but not related to the Deutsches Bildungsbürgertum, so that they get a broader understanding of the crisis. The FAZ is not a relay for Wolfgang Münchau. I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you, right? So you need to imagine that if you're bathing, imagine, and I'm just trying to depict what happened with German elites. Imagine that the German elites are the pharmacist and the doctor and all these Bildungsbürgertum who is more or less feeded through the FAZ on how Germany should behave, right? If a newspaper like this doesn't hold against an anti-European spin in public opinion, then you lose your elites. So the Bild-Zeitung is one thing, which is bottom-up. But the FAZ was top-down, and they did it too. The FAZ also wrote Germany into Northern Currency Union and Southern Currency Union. All that. They are basically, since a couple of weeks, and I give you that one, they are trying to withdraw from it. Yeah? And you see neat differences between politic, economic, and feuilleton section, which is interesting because what I detect here is that the FAZ, if it all implodes, does not want to be held responsible for being a bad media player. No? But that's a different discussion. So